to the open house. My name is Samora. How are you?
I'm very well, and it's great to be in Mpumalanga again. It's great to be here. It's a beautiful part of the country, and great to be here to speak to people about the election.
Right now coming into here, your trip into this place, I'm sure you experienced the mini dynamics that we have in this town. Looking at this center, so many signs that are saying to let. You can see how much COVID has hit down, you know, and people are going into an election, local government in particular, that speaks to the grassroots needs of the people. What can they expect to hear from the DA in assuring them that their eggs will not be misplaced?
Well, I think that what's important is if you go and look at the DA manifesto, it is not a booklet of promises. It's a record of action which shows what we've done, where we're in government, and how we've revived small towns and metros around South Africa. It's a case of showing and not telling. And what it focuses on, the 7 basic areas that you need to get absolutely right if you're going to get a municipality working again. You cannot build a municipal local economy on poor service delivery, bad governance, and an inability to be able to plan ahead for the future, particularly on infrastructure. So our manifesto focuses on getting those basics right for towns, and then building onto that the investment, tourism, manufacturing, and job creation that comes with it. And that is the focus of this thing, which is why we say we get things done. Our posters say the DA gets things done, and we're able to show South Africans, no matter where they are, whether they're in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, or KZN, that if we're given an opportunity in your town or your city, we can get things done.
I like the fact that you're very conversant with the manifesto that you've gone through, you know. But I want to talk now to practicality. In the manifesto, you talk about eliminating ESCOM and getting a direct energy supply user relationship, which will talk to the price reduction, efficiency of services, including privatization, which is what it is in essence, right? The people that have pioneered the move towards becoming independent power stations have really faced a serious deadlock with regard to the red tape. What do you envision as your basics 1, 2, 3s to address such moves? Because if you're talking about privatization of energy, then you come into that space.
Yeah, well, I think that first of all, we've got to start from the point where national government can no longer provide the service. That's why we're sitting with load shedding. The single monopoly by government is not working, and that's why our towns and cities sit with our factories, floors stopping, our businesses closing. And I don't call it load shedding, I call it job shedding, because when those things close, though.
If you can get me, we agree, we've got a power problem, which is load shedding, and I love that you call it job shedding, because people are losing literal jobs because factories cannot run.
So how are we going to do it practically, you ask?
What are the practicalities that are in place? Not in detail, but maybe if you can walk us through the grey areas, you know.
So I believe that local government's going to have to step assertively into the space. You can't build a local economy without power. And so I think that local government, and where we get into government, we're going to challenge national government. We're going to start procuring directly from independent power producers. We've spent the last 5 years asking government for permission. I think a local government's going to have to step into that space and start procuring independent power from independent power producers to keep the lights on in their towns and cities, and then force national government to take you to court to try and stop you. I don't think that there's a court in the country who would rule in favour of a government that's trying to keep the lights off. So we've started already in Cape Town. We're already one load shedding level below the rest of the country. There's 6 municipalities in the Western Cape that in the next 5 to 10 years are going to be completely ESCOM free by generating their own electricity through independent power producers. And we're going to unleash, I believe, a jobs revolution in green energy in South Africa, where young people, new entrants to the market, are going to be able to smash the monopoly of the state and be able to start up businesses and be able to grow those businesses and hire more people into them as that industry grows.
The general movement in terms of town development has been that when a new investment, a new fruit that brings opportunity to that town comes up, there is a general collapse of what was the anchor there. We're here in Witbank, you look at the collapse of the steel industry, you know, you go back to Victor Kanye, once the farming hub of the country, you know, now you look at how the farming there is is existing in coexistence with mining. What steps are they in terms of the green economy? You spoke of green, and then we spoke into cannabis. I want you to roll out the other aspects when you talk about greening as the DA in municipalities and what really it speaks into.
Yeah, so are you talking about urban design and open space and ensuring that when we have city-led development that it takes into account the environment impact of buildings, but also making sure there's enough public spaces, public open spaces where you have trees, you've got recreational areas where people can come together. And if you look at, for instance, the city of Cape Town, there's a very strong emphasis on public open spaces where people can come and recreate, and you've got some element of the environment that's protected. Then when you look at the design, even municipal projects, using solar, harnessing solar, rainwater harvesting, all of that has got to be incorporated into your building bylaws so that any new buildings that come up and any new developments done by the city are harnessing those new energy forms and also the water-wise developments. We are an arid country. We suffer with a water shortage, and we've seen the devastating drought in the Eastern Cape and how that's impacted there. We've got to incorporate all of these challenges into the design of the urban environment when we both plan new precincts and also when we redevelop areas in towns.
So we are in Mpumalanga, and the vast of our occupation is peri-urban. You know, in terms of addressing the sidelines, the marginalized. You know, because the common cry is that you have sidelined the ones who are at the furthest end. What does the DA seeks to rope in this election? Because the local government's election speaks to the primary of the people. The ones I gave an example of a young boy in Arenot who's lost in the outskirts. He's not in Witbank, he's not in Middleburg. They say where the hub of the application in the carbon copy Cape Town execution cannot really be duplicated in principle, like for like.
Yeah, well, I mean, we run a number of towns in the Western Cape and in Midvaal where there's a very large farming community. I think people forget as well, Tshwane, which we run, has a massive, it's the third largest municipality in the world, and it has a huge agricultural rural component to it, and you've got to focus there. And obviously it's very difficult to run services out from the centre to those places, so you've got to look at using other methods to deliver services there, whether it's through package plants to deal with sewage and wastewater, whether it's rainwater harvesting and other things, but also how you develop those local economies out there, because we suffer with a huge rate of mass urbanization into the urban core because people don't have services out there and they lack opportunities. I think we've got to focus on building those rural economies by identifying unique industries, unique products that could be developed in those areas, and then to aggressively go out and market that particular area around those products and those industries. So I think that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. So what you don't want is somebody having to travel 80 kilometers just to access a work opportunity. You want people to be able to access those where they live. And this is sadly the story of small towns around South Africa where they're literally collapsing under the weight of poor service delivery and lack of opportunity. And then it's a double-edged sword because it's now putting pressure on the urban areas who now sit with informal settlements around them because people want to be where they can access services. And I think if we can decentralize services in the first instance to ensure those rural economies are sustained, and then also to look at how we densify in the urban core. But the other thing as well that I think that we need to look at, particularly in those areas, is something like agro-processing. So a lot of what we do is we export maize, we export our agricultural products. They then get processed overseas. I think there's a huge opportunity in those peri-urban and rural areas to focus on agro-processing so that we're making a value-added product there that we then can sell to the world, and it's going to be able to create jobs.
Right, speaking value addition, here we are, 18 days away from election day. What do you think the numbers will speak in terms of value addition for the DA in Mpumalanga?
Yeah, I think we're going to grow. I think we're going to do well here. I think that we're in with a really good shot to win Steve Tshwete municipality, which is why we're focusing like a laser beam on it. I think our team has put in a lot of work here over the last few years, and I think we're going to have a much better result here than we had in the last election. Speaking to people here, people are fed up with service delivery. They're fed up with the lack of water, electricity and sanitation, and they're looking towards a change. Everybody knows why we're in this situation. What they want to see is how you're going to get them out of this situation, how you're going to stop the sewage running down the streets, how you're going to keep them safe in their community, how you're going to create a job for them. And our manifesto sets out very clearly how we're going to do that in these places. And I think that's a compelling offer for the people of Mpumalanga.
So how is it going to look for the DA? 50 plus 1?
Well, in Steve Tshwete, we're asking for 50% plus 1. We want 50% plus 1. Because where we can get a majority, we can really accelerate service delivery and move all of these things into high gear. When you're running a coalition, you've got a whole lot of different hands on the steering wheel, and it's very hard to keep things moving in the right direction. If you've got your own majority, as we've shown in Midvaal, Koga in the Eastern Cape, the city of Cape Town, you're able to accelerate. And those municipalities are now amongst the best in the country because they've got a DA majority and a government that gets things done.
Mr. John Steenhuisen, thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been great to be with you today. Cool.
Okay.